This is Tish Griffin here, back for Family Credit Management. And I am here to talk with you today just about your finances, getting your credit in order, any types of issues that you are having relating to money management or finances. I'm here for you. And we're going to go over a lot of good tips, advice. I'll share a few resources with you today to help you keep your finances under control. And yes, we are still recovering. We are all in recovery mode, trying to get things back together, trying to get our finances in order after this COVID stretch that we've all suffered from. And one of the things that a lot of people still have questions on is, how do you deal with your student loans? So we're going to talk about that today. We will also go over just some tips of winning the debt game. And yes, when you're dealing with your debt and your finances, trying to keep everything in order, it is a game. And there's a game that these creditors play to get you to spend money, to get you to lose money, and just to keep bleeding. But we're going to talk about some ways to stop that as well, so that you are in control and you are winning this game of debt in your life. We want you to be financially empowered. We want you to be able to stand on your own and have your debt under control, know what you're doing, be able to save and create opportunities for yourself. So we've got counselors standing by at Family Credit. At any time you want to reach out, you can reach out at 800-994-3328. And again, there are counselors that are there to answer your questions and that will help you make the right decision for your finances. So if you do not want to talk with anyone, but you do like surfing the web, or you want to look at the website, it is familycredit.org. So feel free to use that as a resource. Ask any questions that you have regarding debts or finances you want to go into deeper than what we're talking about here. This is their resource to do it with, and that's familycredit.org, or reach out to a counselor directly at 800-994-3328. So now let's get into the meat of our subject today. We are talking about student loans and how to handle them. A lot of times people think like, I'm just going to stay in school because I know my student loans are there. They're not going away. There's nothing I can do about it. Or you've reached the point where you are letting those student loans control your life. They've charged off. You have not made payments on them at all. But they do affect your credit report. And they affect your credit report more than you know. A lot of times when you are in school, a lot of us weren't given the proper information to even know how to handle student loans and what we can do for them. And we just get them. We sign the promissory notes. We sign the papers that says that the only way that we can go to school is if we finance it, and this is the way to do it. So we don't realize what we're getting ourselves into. And student loan debt can be consuming. There's people that have like maybe $1,000 worth of student loan debt, but then there are those that suffer from $100,000, $200,000, and even more than that in student loan debt. And a lot of times when you don't pay them, it does affect your credit report. They will charge off just like regular debt, because now the student loan servicers feel that they're not going to get paid ever. So it affects you. Anytime you have a student loan that has you have not paid, that student loan will go into default. But the cool part about it is, if you stay in contact with your servicers, if you see what options out there, and we're going to go over some of those options and strategies today. If you look at what you're dealing with and stay in contact with them and let them know what's going on, there are ways for you to keep those accounts in good standing, whether or not you can pay it. So that's what we want you to focus on. Staying in contact with them, letting the servicers know what's going on. So a lot of people think that they can get rid of their student loan debts if they file bankruptcy or just don't pay. But keep in mind, if you file bankruptcy, that student loan debt still exists. That's not really a way to get rid of the student loans unless there's truly, truly extenuating circumstances, which no one has been able to really do that. So if you're looking at your student loans, you got to figure it out. One of the tools that you want to do is first start by getting a report of your student loans, and you can do that at www.ed.gov. So that's ed as in education.gov. I'm giving you that resource. I want you to use it because that's the first place you need to go. You need to know how many student loans you have, when you get them, when did you get them, what are the amounts on them, what interest rate are you paying on them. And a lot of times we'll see that those student loans have grown. Sometimes they've even doubled because we have not been paying them any attention, and they do accrue interest daily. So I want you to start there by getting your report. And then a lot of times we think, well, it's just the student loans that are on our credit report. Yes, student loans do show up on your credit report, but a lot of times not all of them are there. So you do want to get this comprehensive report. It's just like a credit report, but it's available through the U.S. Department of Education. And it lists all the information that you need for your student loans. First place to go, because you always want to know what you're dealing with. Then after you do that, you can pull your credit report as well from annualcreditreport.com. The best place for you to go get your credit report. Annualcreditreport.com will allow you to log in and get your credit report once a year from each one of the 3 credit bureaus. So that means every year you can get a free report from Equifax, from TransUnion, and from Experian. And you may say, well, I can get free credit reports all the time. I can go through Credit Karma, I can go to my credit card company, and the important thing to remember is that annual credit report deals directly with the credit bureau. So the information that you are getting is the most recent information, and it should be the most accurate out there that the creditors are using. If you use anything else, a lot of times you will get outdated information that's not valid, and so you don't want to take that risk when you're trying to get things together. So you first get your student loan report, and then get your credit report, and you want to look at it, see what's there, know what you're getting yourselves into, and check the status of what those student loans are reporting. With the student loans, they should be reporting that they're in good standing, and that's what we want them to do, because if those student loans report in good standing, that's strengthening our score. So you want to make sure that we keep those things in good standing. Now, a lot of times we look and we see that there could be past due, it'll show payments missed, and sometimes it'll show that the balances that we have now are even more than the credit limits. So you want to keep that in mind too. Now, after you have that list, you want to see what options are available for you. A lot of options that people think about first when they think about student loans and not paying them, oh, I will try a deferment or forbearance. Now, with forbearance, what happens is they will say that with your student loans, going into forbearance, you have a certain amount of time that you're not responsible, or you don't have to make the payments, or they'll give you a reduced payment. That's what happens when you go on forbearance. Thing about forbearance is, though, you still accrue interest daily on those loans. And with the student loans, yes, that interest accruing and you not making payment, that means those balances are still going up. Another option that people look at is deferment. And with deferment, you have a set amount of time, kind of like a forbearance, where you don't really make those payments right now. With the deferment, you can defer your payments for up to 3 years. So that's like 36 months worth of hardship protection that you don't have to worry about making those payments. Only way you can do that, though, you've got to contact those servicers and ask for them. Then a lot of times people feel, well, I've done the deferment, I've used all my forbearance, I can't do anything else. Yes, you can. The great part now is that you can look at doing what's called an income-based repayment plan. You can look at a contingent repay option, and there are some other options that will allow you to get those student loans back in order. So a lot of these plans, though, are based on what you will make, what's your income going to be over an extended period. When you think about student loan repayments right now, you are typically set to repay a student loan at 10 years. And that starts typically 6 months after you stop going to school. So after you've gotten your degree, whether you stopped because you couldn't afford it, or you stopped because you ran out of financial aid, 6 months after you stop taking those courses, you will need to start repaying your student loans. And you want to think about it too. A lot of times, even within 6 months, you haven't really gotten the job that you want. You're not making the income that you want. So you do want to see what your income is and see which one of these options are right for you. Now, one of the options that they offer is a repayment plan, and it is called the Pay As You Earn program. So what they will do is stretch out your payment, still for maybe 10 years, but they'll give you a small payment to start with. And over the next 10 years, and as your income changes, your payment will become more and more and more, so that you still pay that debt off within those 10 years. A lot of times that will work for you. There's also a graduated extended plan, which will go a little bit, still based on the same concept, go a little bit beyond that too. Now, the one program that a lot of people typically use in this situation though is called the income-based repayment plan. This plan is solely based off of what your income is. You do need to apply for it every 1 to 2 years, and you have to stay in contact with the servicer to let them know that yes, you still need the help, and they will base your payments exactly on what your income is now. And they'll take this payment, and what happens is they're hoping that within the next 20 to 25 years now, not the 10, the next 20 to 25 years, you will be able to repay those student loans. And so they're going to give you a little payment right now based off of what your disposable income is. So that means after you've done all your bills, after you've paid everything on your credit report, how much do you have left over? And that's what they will base that payment on, as far as what you need to be making on your student loans each month. And a lot of times you'll find that there is no money left over, and that's okay. They know that, so they'll set your payment somewhere between at 0 or a little bit more than that to allow you to be in repayment. And the cool part about that is that, guess what? Your credit report is going to show as current. It's going to show that you're paying as you agreed, even if that payment is 0. And you'll do that, and you'll, like I said, you probably need to reply and go every single year, send in your paycheck stubs. They may require your tax returns. Whatever information they require, it's always best to do that. So those are some options that you can take when you are dealing with your student loans. And a lot of times, just keep in mind, these student loans can't be forgiven unless you've gone to a school that was not fully accredited, or there are some circumstances there. You still need to work on repaying the debt. A lot of people also feel that, hey, once I stop paying it, this account charged off, I don't owe it. Let me tell you, you do. They track these debts. So even if you don't see that student loan on your credit report anymore, it still may come back to bite you. And I had a client that I've just dealt with not too long ago. He had a student loan from 1988, and it actually stopped him from achieving his financial goals right now because it popped up. And he's thinking that it's not on his credit report, hasn't seen it, hasn't received any letters from him or anything. But it still popped up, and it stopped him from achieving his financial goals, because now he has to take care of this debt from 1988 before he can purchase a home, before he can get his credit in stellar condition. And so these are things that you need to be aware of. If it's not showing on your report, you know you haven't paid it, but you know it's out there, you do want to contact the Department of Education and get that report so that you can start working on getting things together. There's some other options out there too, like if you've got an extended history of not paying, the account's charged off, you can get that account back in good standing, but you have to call them and ask. So don't be shy. Reach out to those creditors, tell them that you need help, and work with the servicer to get your accounts back in good standing so that your credit is strong, so that this debt is taken care of. And like I said, a lot of times if you do the repayment options, once you finish whatever the set term is, there are some instances where they will forgive the rest of the balance. They do that with the income-based repayment plan. Like I said, they stretch it out for 20 to 25 years, and whatever has not been paid in that time, they will forgive that portion at that time. How cool is that? I know you might say like 25 years is a long time, but when you think about these thousands and thousands of dollars that you are supposed to pay for this debt, that's never going to go away unless you actually are able to make huge payments towards it, this is the way to go. So get that information out there, reach out, figure out what's going on, and find the help that you need with dealing with these student loans. It does not have to stop you. So that's one strategy, one part that you can look at doing to get things back in standing. The next thing that we want to talk about, again, the debt game. This game is out there. And what I mean by that is that a lot of the creditors and the debt that we suffer from is meant to keep us down. And we find ourselves struggling, overwhelmed. We don't know what to do. But there's help out there. And if you're diligent and looking at your budget, being truthful with yourself, you can win this debt game. First thing you want to do is make sure that you take an inventory of your credit report, know what you're going through. Again, annualcreditreport.com, best place for you to do that. So take an inventory of every debt that you have, those things that are reporting on your credit report. And sometimes we have things that aren't even on our credit report, but we know we get that letter in the mail. We know we get a collection call, we get a notice, we get a medical bill. And you want to make sure you're keeping track of that. Don't just throw those letters in the garbage. Know what you're working with so that you can make a strategy for dealing with them. And maybe you can't take care of it right now, but eventually you will be able to. You can put yourself in a better financial standing so that you can get this taken care of and you keep your finances together. Even if you get like a small medical bill or a large medical bill, just know $10 on that bill right now today goes a lot further than you think, because guess what? Next month, the balance is going to be less by $10. So even putting the small amounts on it can help keep things in good standing. After you got the inventory of everything that you owe, you know all your debts, now we need to figure out what kind of money can you put towards it. Is there any extra money? I mentioned earlier about discretionary income. So that income that's left after you've paid all of your bills, can you take some of that and put towards your debt here? Then you want to look at, am I making my payments on time right now, or can I do better? Look at your due dates. Know what your due dates are. Know what your minimum payments are, and make sure that you're doing this and keeping things in good standing. And you should have that all written out for you, or maybe if you're using your Excel or some type of spreadsheet, that you know what your minimum payments are and when they are due. And you also need to know what your pay dates are too. So when that income comes, or that discretionary income comes, you can win with that. Then think about this. You know what your due dates are. You know what your debt is. You've got the amount that you can put towards that debt. How do I get this debt paid off faster? And what are those things that I need to do while I'm working on that? So first thing, make sure you're paying your bills on time each and every single month. You want to make sure that you are making your minimum payments at least. Now, if you can make more than your minimum payments, that's going to do so much better for you. Now, with you making your minimum payments, sometimes you might get close to your credit limit and you don't even realize it. So you want to keep that in mind too. What is your balance in relation to the payments that you're making? And what is your credit limit? How does that work into play? And how does that keep you ahead in the debt game? So while you're making your minimum payments, you've got your discretionary amount. You know what extra you can put towards everything. And then we start tackling this debt one at a time. Making your minimum payments, making your payments on time. Next thing you want to do, make sure you're keeping your cards under your credit limit. So if you got an $1,000 card, you shouldn't use more than $500 on that card at any given time. And you want to make sure you're keeping your balances low. You're keeping it under your credit limits. Now, they say the people with the best scores, with the highest scores, only use like 7% of their available credit. So if you're thinking about 7%, that's like $70 on that $1,000 card. That's what you want to do. If you need to use more than that, feel free to do it, but make sure that you're paying that balance down before it's reported to the credit bureau. And that's another tip, another way for you to stay ahead of the debt game and making sure that you're making some leeway with your debt. So following those tips, making sure you're paying on time, paying attention to your interest rates, paying attention to your due dates. That's the next thing. Look at your interest rates. So now we're having some fun. We're looking at our budget. We know what we have to do. We've got the amounts that we can put towards it. Let's look at our interest rates. See which ones are higher. And now interest rates are starting to shoot up for no reason at all. Keep in mind, a creditor can reduce or increase your interest anytime they get ready, because guess what? You've given them permission. When you signed up for that account, you have actually shown that you trust them to increase your interest rate. They can charge you fees, whatever, because you signed the agreement saying that they can do that. So look at your interest rates, see how much they're charging you. And then sometimes take a step further, look a little bit further when you're looking at that rate. look at what those finance charges are costing you. So if you've got a 5% interest rate, of course your finance charges probably are lower compared to your balance. But sometimes if you looking and you've got a 30% interest rate, you don't know how that interest rate got that high. Sometimes we see people with 39% interest rates. And you think about that, that's a lot of money that's getting away from you, especially if you are making your minimum payments. If you are struggling with that, if you're having problems with that, reach out to a counselor at familycredit.org. You can talk to a counselor, 800-994-3328, and even just ask them, hey, what interest rate does this creditor usually charge? Am I paying too much? How's that affecting my budget? Those are things that you can actually ask and find out if there's some better alternatives. Does the creditor help you out? Do they know if you have a hardship? Is there something that they can do? These counselors are on standby and they know how to answer those questions for you. So reach out to Family Credit, 800-994-3328. So we've paid attention to our minimum payment. We know we're making our payments on time. We are looking at our statements and we've got the amount that we can put towards it each and every single month, and we know what interest rates are and our finance charges to make sure we're covering that amount. Now, take an inventory of your debt. I want you to figure out which debt you are paying the highest interest rate to. This is our game plan. This is how we are going to win this debt game. We're going to take this account that we're paying the most interest on, and we're going to put this extra money towards it. Now, there's another strategy that we can use too. We can say, okay, well, I don't necessarily want to pay the highest interest rate off. Let's look at, I've got an interest rate of 29%, but I also have a card that only has like $600 on it. So maybe I can take that one and pay that $600 off sooner, and then that'll get me out of debt quicker. Either way you go, whether you do the highest interest rate or you do the smallest balance, it's going to pay you off and get you out of debt within the same amount of time, but it's going to be quicker. So if you are not doing this strategy, if you're just making your minimum payments each and every single month, it may take you up to 30 years or more at making the minimum payment for you to pay this debt off. A lot of credit card companies now will show you how much or how long it'll take you. Sometimes you'll see 18 years, 29 years, 30 years, but for the most part, that debt will stretch out that long if you're only making the minimum payment. Good part, now that we know in our budget, we know we've got a little bit extra. If we're taking this extra and we're going to put towards this one account, the highest interest rate or the lowest balance to get that paid off sooner, guess what? You are saving, even in some instances, up to 25 years off of the time that it will take you to pay that off. If you're using this strategy where you have this discretionary income that you can pay towards these debts, it'll get you out of debt within 5 to 7 years, as opposed to you stretching it out for 30. So I want you to do that. Look at your budget, see if you can put something towards it. Then think about this. If you have a lot left over, you've got bonuses that you get from time to time, you've got extra income coming in that you can take and put towards this debt, it's going to get you paid off that much sooner. And yes, you're winning again with this debt game, because guess how the creditors make their money? They make their money in the amount that you're paying in finance charges. They make their money in extra fees, annual fees that you're paying. They make their extra money if you get a late fee. You know, some of the best clients that these creditors deal with are ones that pay their minimum payments each and every single month like clockwork. But sometimes something happens. They may miss a payment. They get a late fee. It takes the accounts over limit now. You get an over limit fee. So those creditors, they're looking at that money. Yes, they get the money off of the fees, and that helps them. That keeps them in the money. But it takes it away from you. And a lot of times, their best client, they said they do that every now and then, but they get things back on track. Now, if you got to the point where you're not making payments at all because you don't have it and your accounts are charged off, then it still does affect you. That debt is still there, and you can still use this strategy to come back. You can contact a counselor at Family Credit, 800-994-3328, or you can contact a counselor and just figure out what's the best way for you to go about getting these things in order. Once a creditor has not received payments for at least 120 to 180 days, they will do what's called charging an account off. And that's no payments within 4 to 6 months. So if you haven't been able to make your payments in that long, then yes, the debt is probably going to charge off. That does not mean you don't have to pay it. They still want you to pay it. You're still responsible for it. But the difference is now they know they've changed it from a performing asset, or from you being able to use the card, to a non-performing asset, meaning that they know that they probably won't get paid on it. They're still going to keep charging you interest and fees most likely, but you won't be able to use the card. The account will be closed, and they could take this account and send it to a collection agency, or for further collections, they could go legal on it and send it to an attorney to try and collect off of it. Now, creditors do have what's called a statute of limitations. They have a time frame that they can contact you on this account, which typically right now is 7 years from the date that an account went bad. So 7 years from the date of delinquency, they can still keep trying to collect on it. They can harass you for it. They can send you letters. They can offer you different ways for you to take care of that debt too. But know that it's really up to you to get that taken care of. Or ignoring it, if you ignore your debt, if you ignore your budget, if you ignore the amount of money that you're spending, that will keep you in debt, and this debt will not go away. It's up to you to take a conscious decision to say, I'm doing something about it. Like I said, even if it's just using $10 at a time each and every single month, you can work on getting those things together. And if you need some help with that, Family Credit is available at 800-994-3328, and they can give you more information going to familycredit.org, taking control of your finances and getting that help, because there are certified counselors that are there to help you.